Hi, I'm Dr. Jim Siebert. It's time for our tropical forecast here on YouTube. We're going to discuss what's going on with not only Ida, but all the other things that are out there in the Atlantic Sea Basin. Well, Ida is kind of losing more of that defined low, which is, I guess, good news. The problem is, though, we have a tornado watch that's in effect from Allentown, Philadelphia, goes right up to New York, as they still got spin in the atmosphere and is still producing a lot of heavy rainfall. But by tomorrow, this thing should be moving more out into the Atlantic, and then we'll say goodbye to Ida. Okay, now the setup that's happening down here in the Gulf of Mexico is kind of important for a couple of things. First of all, we got the Bermuda High east of us. We got high pressure developing in the central parts of the Gulf. Then we have this high just to the west of us. Now, this is going to do two things. One, as we head on into the holiday weekend for southeast Texas, we're going to see less rain. It's going to be more humid, but we're also going to see less rain because we're going to have high pressure in the upper levels of the atmosphere pushing down. So even though we have moisture trying to come up with the daytime heating every day, the high pressure is going to win. It also means it's going to be a little bit hotter into the weekend. So it will go about 96, 97 degrees, 93, 92 would be average. Now, that's just the actual weather for southeast Texas. The other thing that this is going to do, and this is actually kind of an important one for us, it's going to be an effective blocker. Just like in football, it is going to block whatever wants to come into the Gulf of Mexico away from southeast Texas. And it's actually going to be, there's something out there to talk about. Now, there's only a 30% chance that something will form. And it's out here, and it's got to work around land. It's going to be pretty close as it moves towards just south of Cancun and Belize into the southern Gulf. But notice, this thing curves, even from the very beginning here, no matter what happens, because that high pressure is not going anywhere. And so this is one of these storms that even though it might come into the southern Gulf of Mexico, no chance coming up here to the north. Not just for Texas, but anywhere in the northern part and the eastern parts of the Gulf of Mexico, all the way into Texas. So we're good on this one. Now, it only has a 30% chance of organizing between now and the next 5 days anyway, because the upper level winds are kind of blowing. In fact, you can kind of see it. See how the winds over here with the clouds kind of going this way, the storm's going the other direction. So you have different things that are working against it. And then it's also because I mentioned it's close to land, has to cross the Yucatan, go into the Bay of Campeche, and so it just isn't going to have a lot of time to organize. It's not going to have like a clean shot of open water from the Caribbean or in the Gulf of Mexico all that long either. So we'll keep an eye on this, but it's not going to impact us. It poses no threat to southeast Texas. So let's come up here. Now this is Kate. Now Kate it was a tropical storm. It really has just sort of torn apart. I mean, if you look carefully, it looks more organized up here, but this is where the low is. And so the National Hurricane Center, they've just called it on this one. So this will be the last advisory that we have on Kate. And so they've even taken the forecast out of it, which is good. I mean, we like it when storms disappear. Now, if you come out here, this is Larry, formed yesterday as a tropical depression, became a tropical storm today. It is expected to become a rather strong hurricane. But if you notice, the forecast already has it going to the right, not just to the right, but to the right of the Windward Islands, to the right of San Juan, Puerto Rico, to the right of the United States. This thing's going to stay out into the waters of the Atlantic. So again, this is not bad news. And this is the one that we've been tracking for almost the last week as this huge tropical wave coming off of Africa. And so I'm not surprised that we're going to see a hurricane out of this one. In fact, winds right now are at 70 miles per hour. It's almost a hurricane now. But again, it is going to be turning to the right, which is also very, very good news. All right, if you're keeping score at home, we've got to Larry. The next storm would be Mindy. Now, it's an outside chance that that low that wants to move into the extreme southern Gulf becomes organized enough to become named. So we'll see. But keep in mind also, now it is September, but we're not to the height of hurricane season yet. We've got about a week and a half to go before we get to the height of hurricane season. Then it starts to back down after that. So we're going to keep our eye on things, but I will say this, as I look at the long-range models now, besides this low that wants to go into Mexico, really not much pointed in the Gulf, at least at this point anyway, and still in the longer range models, we're at about the 14th or so, 15th of September, looks like we might get our first front, and when I say front, it'll cool us down a little bit, but what it does is the high pressure that I was talking about being an excellent blocker, the cold fronts are even better at that sort of thing. So once we get to our first cold front, and then the ones behind that usually go out further to the Gulf of Mexico, that usually helps us out, you know, as far as ending hurricane season. And also, if you've lived here long enough in Southeast Texas, you know that usually the last week of August or the first week of September is kind of our hot time when we could see something, or also the very first week of June. So there's about 3 weeks out of the hurricane season that we tend to have most of our systems, and at this point there's nothing pointed in our direction. So I love to be able to have good news this time of year, especially after the rough week that the Gulf has had with Ida last week. But right now things are looking better for us. That's our update for today. We'll talk to you again real soon.